Aw, isn't she so cute? Meg Ryan stole the hearts and minds of the movie-going public in the 80s and 90s, but behind the adorable smile were dark secrets that will
shock you to your very core.
Born in Connecticut in 1961, Margaret Hyra, to use her actual boring real name, was adorable from birth, according to her parents, probably. Her mum was a former actress turned English teacher and her dad was a math teacher. By the way, I did a little digging and there does seem to be a correlation between having teachers as parents and acting, specifically in romantic comedies. Eliza Dushku, Sandra Bullock, Jennifer Garner and Julia Roberts all have teacher parents, all rom-com queens. Is this information important? No. Meg was named Homecoming Queen and Cutest Girl in School in her senior year, which was probably the 70s equivalent of having 10,000 followers on Instagram. You think it's actually meaningful and makes you important somehow, but it doesn't really. Except in Meg Ryan's case, it kinda did, because she was about to ride those signature girl next door looks all the way to the top of the Hollywood A-list. You see, she wasn't prepared to just be another pretty face. Whereas 90% of homecoming queens back then got knocked up about 2 hours later and found themselves with 4 kids at the age of 30 and married to a guy called Zach just because he had his own car, Meg went a different route. She headed to university to study journalism, paying her tuition by modelling and acting on the side. After some small roles in commercials, it wasn't long before Meg was being courted by big-time TV producers. She was cast in CBS daytime soap opera As the World Turns, and with just one semester left before graduation, had to make the tough decision to drop out and leave that silly journalism dream behind. After only a couple of years strutting her stuff on daytime TV, where the hairstylists only knew how to do one style, Meg landed her first feature film credit in 1986 when she appeared alongside Tom Cruise in Top Gun, sporting a brand new mop top. She played the wife of Goose, played by Anthony Edwards, and it turned out that their on-screen relationship bled out into the real world. They began dating on set and moved in together, something that Meg would develop something of a habit of doing with her co-stars. Using Top Gun as a springboard, she moved on to bigger things in her career, and in her romantic life. Her next big role came in 1987's Inner Space. In the film, Meg portrayed Dennis Quaid's love interest, and wouldn't you know it, she ditched Edwards and started a real-life relationship with Quaid. In 1989, Meg rocketed to Hollywood stardom when she played a career-defining lead role in When Harry Met Sally. But she wasn't a shoo-in for the part. In fact, director Rob Reiner wanted just about anyone else to take the lead role. He offered it to Susan Dey, who had to turn it down due to scheduling issues. Then he considered Elizabeth Perkins, Elizabeth McGovern, and Molly Ringwald before finally giving the role to our Meg. It was a decision he wouldn't regret. Meg had campaigned hard for the role, even turning down a potentially huge part in Steel Magnolias, a part that would eventually snag an Oscar nomination for Julia Roberts. But was Meg bothered? I mean, probably, but who needs Oscar recognition when you've just written yourself into rom-com history? The film's infamous diner scene where Meg's character fakes an orgasm was actually her own idea. Ironically, she had to do multiple takes. Lucky girl. In a storyline that she could have lifted right off the pages of one of her romantic comedies, Meg Ryan married Dennis Quaid in style. The couple tied the knot on Valentine's Day in 1991, and a year later had a son, the actor Jack Quaid. It looked like this power couple were gonna last, but if it had lasted, I probably wouldn't be making this video, so hooray for marital discourse. She didn't have to fight her way through a crowd of Hollywood starlets for her next iconic role. In fact, it was written with her in mind. The role of Annie in 1993's Sleepless in Seattle was coveted by Kim Basinger, Michelle Pfeiffer, Sharon Stone, Jodie Foster, Demi Moore, and Julia Roberts. But writer and director Nora Ephron was determined to cast Meg alongside Tom Hanks, whom she had previously starred with in Joe vs. the Volcano. The movie was a huge box office hit and is still one of the most successful romantic comedies of all time. It garnered Oscar nominations, spawned a musical, and introduced a lot of people to the concept of tiramisu.
What is tiramisu? You'll find out.
Meg had conquered the rom-com genre and was getting tired of her girl next door image. She dipped her toes into dramas such as Courage Under Fire, where she gives a totally believable portrayal of someone who can pilot a helicopter and yell at soldiers. But for some reason, critics didn't love the new badass Meg, and by the late 90s, she returned to doing what she does best. She decided that if she couldn't do serious roles, she would take her roles seriously. To prepare for 1998's You've Got Mail, Meg actually worked as a cashier in a real bookstore in New York City. Okay, so it's not Daniel Day-Lewis staying in character as someone with cerebral palsy for weeks on end, but it's a start. In 2000, Quaid and Ryan separated and the tabloids went wild. Around the same time, Meg was starring alongside Russell Crowe in Proof of Life, and rumours were abound that they were more than just co-stars. With the tabloids abuzz with rumours and pictures of the two canoodling, Quaid filed for divorce. He would later say that he was jealous of Ryan's fame, and after being branded as a cheater, she would hit back with her own divorce papers, accusing him of having affairs throughout their marriage. The director of Proof of Life was less than impressed with all the negative attention surrounding his film, and he blamed the media circus for the movie's lukewarm reception. Ultimately, the fast-moving relationship with Crowe was too much too soon for Meg, so she got out, but her good girl image had taken a beating. After the divorce, Meg continued to tear down her good girl reputation. In 2003, she appeared in the mystery thriller In the Cut with Mark Ruffalo. Audiences were happy to see her back on the big screen, but they hardly expected to see so much of her. For the first time in her career, she bore it all in a prolonged and particularly provocative love scene. Unfortunately, critics nor audiences cared much for the film, but it was just the beginning of Meg's good girl gone bad era. To promote the film, Meg appeared on BBC's Michael Parkinson talk show. The two had a terse exchange in which Parkinson accused the actress of being wary of journalists like himself, to which she suggested he wrap up the interview. She later called him a nut, but Meg wasn't above behaving a little nutty herself, allegedly. For instance, some of her film contracts supposedly had a rather bizarre stipulation. It was rumoured that extras couldn't look her in the eyes. But her co-stars, they were allowed to do much more than that. Over the next few years, Meg was linked with John Cusack, Matthew Perry, Hank Azaria, Matthew Perry again, before finally settling into a relationship with musician John Mellencamp. The couple managed a happy 4 years together before once again, Meg's fame became a wedge that would drive them apart. That and the fact she was living in New York and Mellencamp was living in Indiana. After some on-again, off-again shenanigans, including an engagement that was eventually called off by Meg, in 2019 they finally went their separate ways. Our Meg went from rom-com icon to tabloid gossip fodder to being kind of a forgotten relic of a pop culture moment. She's only made one big screen appearance in the past 14 years in the movie Ithaca, which she also directed and which was rubbish. But Meg is due to make her rom-com comeback in November this year, and honestly, people are kind of into it. God knows the world needs a bit of light froth to brighten the place up a bit, and in that subgenre, there is only one Meg Ryan. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe for more.